What do you know about Pete and the Mets, and if this is going to actually come to fruition?
Give us something new, Andy. Give us something new. Come on.
Well, I can give you something new in the sense that it's a new week, so I made new calls. Did I get the same answer? Maybe.
Okay.
But look,
which is, and what is that answer?
Oh, you want the information?
Please,
okay.
yes.
As this week dawns, even in the wake of Jim's reporting, which we'll get into, that came in late last week about Alonso's camp's willingness to come down on years, there remained a gap, and there remains a gap that's fairly significant between the Mets and Pete Alonso. Now, we're at a point in this kind of thing, and if there's enough mutual desire, would it shock me if we got off the air and David Stearns and/or Steve Cohen got on the phone with Scott Boras and they hashed it out? No, it can't ever shock you at this point. But as of the beginning of this week, where we're sitting here now, that gap had not yet been bridged, and there we still are.
Hart?
Yeah, you know, I mean, it feels like it's something that's bound to get done, but at this point, you don't know for sure. I know it's frustrating for Mets fans because he's out there. It's obvious he just doesn't have that big market he was hoping for. But you can't blame Stearns for not wanting to bid against himself, basically.
Right.
I wonder if at some point does Steve Cohen say, hey, come on, go ahead, let's do it, you know, or is he going to be patient and leave this into Stearns' hands? He kind of took over the Soto negotiations, but I think he probably wants to let Stearns handle things his way. In that case, this could drag on for a while.
So real quick on that, I think that's a great point. And the Soto thing was such a carve-out where that's an ownership deal no matter where it happens. Yeah. But this is David Stearns' team. Steve Cohen is not involved in baseball ops in that way most of the time, and this has been, my understanding, Stearns' negotiation. You're right about that.
All right, let's bring Jim Duquette into this conversation right now. Jim, again, you reported last week that Pete Alonso's camp, and Andy mentioned it a moment ago, that they have offered the Mets exclusively a 3-year deal with an opt-out or opt-outs in that deal. So what is the next move here as you see it for the two sides?
Well, I'm a little surprised, first off, that, that they're not a little closer, to Andy's point. I think, some of this, when I tweeted that out and reported it last week, we talked a lot about what was that dollar amount. You can talk about 3-year deals with opt-outs, but you still have to figure out and come to an agreement on the dollar amount. If the asking price is, over $30 million per year, that's a little bit rich for what other first basemen are getting. Obviously, Christian Walker's deal was in the low 20s per year for 3 years. There's that in the industry-wise, Miguel Cabrera has set a record. This was an old contract now. The AAV was around $31 million. So there's a lot of thoughts that Pete, and that's what Scott Boras likes to do, is try to set records on AAVs if he can't get the total dollar amount. So, if he's looking for north of $31 million per year, I don't blame the Mets for balking at that too. So, it may not necessarily be on the unwillingness of the Mets to go to 3 years. It might be on the dollar amount that they're caught here. And to some degree, there's a stalemate overall in the free agent market with position players. There's only a couple, Adames and Soto, I think, are the only two position players that got more than 3 years. That's where you're seeing the market these days is 3 years or less, and the dollar amount is it hasn't gone up like most people thought, even for guys like Pete, who's established and has the above average power, and we know what the fit would be with the Mets. So I think there's that point here with David, like, well, I don't have to chase something here. I don't see many other teams out there that have a need for a first baseman outside of places that maybe Pete doesn't want to go on the West Coast. San Francisco, Seattle, maybe the Angels. So they're still in a very good position, but I think that's reasonable to think about why things haven't kind of progressed to a signing at this point.
I think we've reached the point where you've got to start to at least consider what's going to happen if they don't sign Pete Alonso, right? And how are they going to fill that void in the lineup if they can't come to an agreement? How do you think they should fill it in?
Well, I'll tell you what I think they will do, which is fill it internally with youth and move some guys around. I know we talked about this a little bit on the show last week, which proves, I guess, that shows how long this has been going on for. And to your point, Gary, the Mets are at a point where they've had to really concretely consider what would this look like without him. And I know that this is an organization that loves Pete Alonso, thinks he's got a good heart, thinks he's obviously got a great power bat, and has been a great Met, thinks there'll be a good team with him, and thinks that they can certainly form a good team without him being on that roster as well. So that's what it would most likely be. They would probably improve the offense by bringing a DH outfielder type. Jesse Winker's definitely still in the conversation, a guy like that. But in terms of the infield, you'd see Vientos, Beatty, Acuna, who am I forgetting? They have a bunch of internal infielders. Mauricio, thank you. Moving around, you'd see not declaring.
Acuna.
These guys are not this guy's not our third baseman. This guy's not our first baseman. They're going to move around on a daily basis.